So I actually used to play on a women's darts team, which is an interesting fact about me. And I did find that after a bottle and a half of wine, I was at my peak performance.
Was there a peak? Because it sounds like you've got way more experience in this than I have. But was there a peak performance? Because when I'm bowling, 2 pints.
Perfect.
I'm good.
Yeah.
2.5 pints, terrible.
Yeah.
I am delighted to be at Builtvisible headquarters and joined by Abbey Grocott. And we're going to be talking about UX and how getting UX right can make you more money.
Definitely, which seems obvious, but I think we've realised that maybe it isn't.
We have, and we were chatting before this about certain scenarios where it's kind of been a bit of a surprise. Firstly, though, I find it interesting that you've ended up doing UX because not that many people do it or even think about it, but certainly not as much as they should. And the normal route into digital, I'm not saying you're not normal.
Oh no, I definitely am not normal, so don't worry about that one.
Quote unquote normal route into digital marketing is picking a channel, normally, right?
Yeah.
So SEO or display or PPC or whatever it is. How on earth did you end up getting interested in UX?
Well, yes. So essentially it started by me wanting to prove a client wrong. And so I was giving lots of, I guess, SEO-led recommendations to one of my clients.
Yep.
But I started my career at a small agency in the Midlands where I kind of did a bit of everything. And they were full service. So I touched a little bit on SEO, but also did things like, UX and web redesign, as well as kind of more campaign stuff. So I guess when I started giving SEO-led recommendations, I had that kind of background to understand that maybe I want to suggest something a bit different anyway. So I thought that I was having this whole, well-rounded approach to my recommendations. But my client kept on coming back to me and said, I don't want to implement these because I think it will kind of make the user experience worse.
Yeah, what sort of recommendations were they?
Oh, so
you don't have to give specifics.
Your standard on-page optimizations, keyword targeting, maybe suggesting different assets you could put on the page to make it better. Quite generic stuff.
Sure.
To make the content better in all aspects, not just so that it would rank on search engines. Anyway, I kept on meeting this blocker of this won't work for user experience. And I knew that was wrong. Kind of, I'm not a person that does keyword stuffing or believes in old school SEO.
It's not who you guys are.
No, not at all. And I don't think anyone
Just to
clarify, I don't think anyone should be doing that for any longer, really.
Yeah, but generally, I guess the approach is that if you make this the best possible piece of content you can, and guide it towards a particular set of commercially orientated keywords, everyone wins.
100%. Yeah. Everyone wins. But ultimately, the number one priority is the end user.
Of course.
And making sure the content meets the intent of their search.
So you're sending these recommendations over, obviously with all of this in mind, and the client's coming back and going, sorry, no. It's going to have a negative impact on UX. Yeah. And you go, not on my watch.
I go, not on my watch. So what I did is I went to my boss and said, look, I want to come back and say you're wrong, but I actually can't come back and say you're wrong until I have the language that can legitimize my points, basically, because I didn't necessarily know the vocabulary in order to talk about UX in a way that sort of legitimized it, as I said. So I asked her to put me on a day training course.
Okay.
And on that training course, I was the actual only content strategist there. And from an agency, they were all from various in-house teams. Like there was Mini there was an insurance company.
Right, okay.
Kind of people from all over the place. But I was the only content strategist. And throughout the day, the trainer kept on coming back to me and being like, Abby, you'll not understand this as a content strategist. And he kept on saying, content strategy and UX are two halves of the same coin. Yeah. One can't work without the other. You can't have a good user experience without really understanding content. You can't have a good content strategy without understanding UX. And so what it made me realise is that not only were we already doing a lot of this stuff, but importantly that commercially we could really capitalise by using the language of UX and kind of saying, as an agency, we do UX. And I think the way the search landscape is going is just going to be entirely driven towards UX and the user experience. We already know that, latest core algorithm updates are all pointing to just bettering the user experience. So it makes a logical sense for us as an organic agency with our roots firmly in SEO to be doing UX.
Also, there's the actually I hadn't even thought about that as a point, but there's also like the basic common sense of what is the point in growing your traffic if your site can't convert that traffic 100%. Or if the user experience is poor. So they have to work together.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, what's the point? So let's talk about process. Right? So we use a formal word. So let's say you're working on a project. The client has expressed an interest in improving their UX. I assume you don't just dive in and start fiddling with stuff.
No.
There's a process.
There is a process, although I have heard some arguments which just say, like CRO-based, very small, tiny, quick changes that can see great improvement rather than, not having to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yeah, I guess if you see some, like a major howler, fix it, right?
Fix it, yeah.
But broadly speaking, what is your process? You mentioned research. We were talking before about mapping out customer journeys. Where'd you start?
Just by talking to people, like mining knowledge and mining insight. Customer service teams are probably some of the most useful and insightful people. So one of our clients, we spent a good few hours and invited them into the process at the research stage.
Nice.
Now they sit on the phones all day every day and are the people directly dealing with the customers. And I don't think typically they would expect to be involved in a web redesign project, but one of our biggest KPIs is to reduce the number of customer service inquiries. So make the website more useful for customers so they aren't picking up the phone.
That's a really cool KPI.
Which is a very cool KPI. And I think we should talk about KPIs in general.
Let's come back to KPIs for sure.
Let's park that for the time being. But I think they speak to customers more than pretty much anyone. Or actually, if you've got physical shops and stores, like speak to the people who are working behind the tills. They'll really understand what the problems are. And so it's about talking to those alongside your key stakeholders, alongside the people that are paying your bills, so to speak, and to understand what their goals are, what the customer goals are, and then in the Venn diagram of what's in between, there's your ultimate goal of what you want this project to be. But I think like we've done it before where, hours and hours of stakeholder interviews and across, the entire business. And then it sounds arduous, and it is, but literally rewatching, re-listening and coding all of the data, making notes, finding themes. It's like old school, but it is
actually good.
Very effective.
We also talked a bit about, before we started, about how surprised you are sometimes when you're talking to people about, okay, well, if you're thinking about investing heavily in SEO or growing traffic, maybe we should think about converting that traffic. And that sometimes that's a conversation that surprises people. Do you find that a lot? And do you get feedback from clients that have come on board with you guys from other agencies and gone, oh my God, like why was this being missed before?
Yeah, do you know what? I found it particularly recently when pitching, when trying to get new business, is I've presented this model which is focused not so much around placing keywords in order to rank, but using keywords to understand, like, basically what people think and feel, like as audience research. And I think that's really important to always see keyword research as audience research and as an insight into our audience's thoughts and feelings. And so then I kind of present this and say, like, obviously we want to be targeting on the page and doing all those kind of things and getting relevant links, etc. But if we start shifting our perspective, then all that will mean is that we tailor all the content to really speak the same language as our customers, and then that will help us drive conversion. Because, for example, I was speaking to one of our clients, and they're really good at lots of they're good at putting lots of content out there for search and ranking, but they're not very good at getting that content to convert, and they just don't see people converting off the back of it. And I was like, well, you've just done all this branding work and you've got like an insight into what who your customer is. Are you putting that into that kind of content? Are you using the keyword research and your own like kind of audience research that you've probably paid a really expensive research or brand agency to give you?
Put a load of time and effort into it at the very least. And then it just ends up being an acquisition thing and not are we missing anything? It's about,
I mean, it always comes back to, I mean, you've got so much competition now. Everyone's got so much competition. How do you get your content to rank? How do you get people to convert off your PPC? How do you also build brand awareness? How do you also make sure that people are going to you and not other people? And it's about having a real understanding of your audience and who you are, and weaving that through every single channel. So really it's just the UX of everything, and ensuring that not any kind of acquisition channel or any touch point is without that understanding of that user experience.
No.
I think I've gone on a waffled there.
No. It really does make sense. The types of projects that you're getting involved with from a UX perspective typically are these content projects, or like keyword research, or like on-site optimization, or a bit of everything is the first question on it. And then the second question is, when you're saying those pitch scenarios or you're talking to a client, because my perception of UX is that it's often like the last thought in the thought process, or it just totally gets forgotten about sometimes, which I imagine means you're having to proactively go to a lot of people and say, hang on a minute.
Or I would counter that and say it's the only thing that people think about.
Right.
So in my experience, either they're not thinking about it because they aren't part of the team that think about it.
And is that because as an SEO agency or an organic agency,
we
you
don't
tend to
as in, and I've seen a lot where you've got like in-house teams which are like content teams, and then UX team, and the UX team sits within design, and the content team sits in like traditional marketing.
That's, do you know what? Because in an ideal world, everyone would work together, wouldn't they?
100%,
right? And you'd be working together on the whole end-to-end journey. But so often the biggest challenge is that we can't talk about email because that sits with someone else, and it's that's a big challenge. Okay, and what's the first part of that question? Types of projects.
Types of projects that I do. Types really vary, and I mean now we've got some pretty much solely UX web redesign projects.
That's awesome.
Which is really fun, and what makes them better, in my opinion, and why people should do them with us, is we like have a solid understanding of SEO and data and content. Like from, as well as understanding user experience. But I think not being a solely UX, or even coming from a UX background, means that we can have a different take on things and do it differently, and also in a much more like holistic, connected way.
I really like it. And it's like, we'll get you more traffic and we'll make that traffic work harder for you.
Exactly. And I always think like Google is a big old algorithm, and they spend millions, if not billions, in understanding user behavior. And so why would you not want to take the learnings from how Google ranks content or puts things in front of people? Why? And we are technically experts in understanding how to do that. Why would you then not want to use that insight to improve your user experience?
It's a no-brainer. Explaining it like that, it's a total no-brainer, isn't it?
It's like you'd be a fool not to listen to Google, really, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And it just as you're talking about it, you're going, these things fit so closely together from just the algorithmic point of view, from content performance point of view, from everything, the keyword research that you do for SEO. Let's use that to see if we're trying to analyze what we're doing from a UX perspective. It all fits together. Final question to kind of wrap this brilliant episode up. What would be your one piece of advice for someone who's decided that they need to start working on their UX a little bit more?
I would say have patience, for one, and really understand why you're doing it, and who your customer is, who your audience is, and what you want to achieve, and kind of what makes you as well. I think finding your USP, so to speak, and then finding out who your customer is and ensuring that they align, and you find the middle ground in which your USP connects with your customer, and then ensuring that all of the user experience points back to that, and also all your content points back to that, I think is really important. Don't try to be like your competitors all the time, because there are just going to be more and more of them. You really need to find the sweet spot in between your audience needs and your business goals, or what makes you kind of unique, to be able to stand out. And if you remain true to that, your user experience will be better, and it won't be so focused on, I don't know, what everyone else is doing. Yeah,
I think that's brilliant. I think
awesome.
That's, very,
basically,
very
it's
cool.
that like classic stay true to who you are. Yeah, very cheesy. Yeah.
What a lovely ending for your first ever podcast.
I know, this is weird, yeah.
How did you find it?
It's actually quite good.
Good fun?
Quite liked it, yeah. Maybe we should do this.
Do it more. But look, thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really cool. And I genuinely think that anyone listening to this who's working on traffic acquisition, it will make them at the very least think about kind of exploring these areas. So brilliant.
Well,
brilliant.
Definitely. You obviously want more money, so you've got to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you so much. Yeah, cheers for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, please do come and subscribe. Join us for future episodes where we talk about the ins and outs of running paid media and driving improved conversions and revenue for your business. See you next time.